Ah, looks like it's live. Probably. Just testing to be sure and such. Make sure the mic is working. Looks like it's live. As it should, and it is. So I think we're okay to proceed with this evening's whatever it will be. Yes, whatever it will be. Some comments I decided might as well. Ken Wheeler and the Electric Universe type people. And, there is an open invitation for anyone who wishes to defend Ken Wheeler physics or Electric Universe physics, whatever that is, because there is no way of pinning it down. It's mostly turning into some sort of plasma universe. They ought to rename themselves. They think plasma is some sort of magical thing that they can just make out of nowhere and blah 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 blah, and answers all the questions. So I'll also get on a list eventually, hopefully, of all the things missing from the conventional physics theory, which is also garbage. So this is like politics in a way. It's like comparing the bad Republican theory against the bad Democratic theory, and there's no right theory in this mush that we're offered from people. So anyway, this idiot or asshole or jackass or smelly skanky cunt, JMESQ Cotto, whatever that the fuck is. Anyway, so he does have a playlist on his channel just full of Ken videos. But again, he doesn't have the balls to maybe get in a room like this and actually explain what he thinks Ken's saying. Draw a picture of what he thinks Ken's saying is happening in the universe. Anyway, graph science. So there's 3 comments he leaves on one video. So that's a sort of a strike against you. Just letting you know. Genuinely, this seems more of a personally motivated, spiteful attack on another's ideologies. So could I say the same thing about Ken then? He doesn't really say anything. He just calls Einstein a knuckle dragger and calls everybody an asshole and an idiot and a moron and a douchebag and whatever other thing you can think of. So we can just discount everything Ken says because he says stupid things like that all the time. Talks about Einstein's hair or something like that's relevant. You don't think he should get any points off for that nonsense? Hypocrite much, fuckhead. There'd be no educational purpose behind such a maliciously methodological breakdown of his work. So does that even make any sense? Why wouldn't somebody who thinks somebody's full of shit and does horrible experiments that he knows can't be accurate, like that pushing the bottle against the refrigerator thing, which is such a fake, and that stupid scale thing, where he moves the magnet to the other side of the scale. I mean, go on, those are such obviously bogus tricks. What are you talking about? So anybody who sits there and would debunk somebody is now being malicious. So if you don't think the creationists, with their fake evidence and their fake nonsense, nobody should bother arguing it. Nobody should bother pointing out how they're liars and fakes and phonies. Fuck you, asshole. Yeah, people should bother. Let alone insulting him personally. Just a hilarious statement coming from a Ken Wheeler defender. I mean, that's all Ken has, and he only picks on dead people, generally speaking. And let's acknowledge, my first encounter with Ken was to say, let's have a debate. And he made a video just mocking me, because I had long hair and I wasn't wearing a shirt. Right? So this is a tattooed fat guy who puts cork in his ears, mocking somebody else's appearance. And you have the temerity to type this rubbish that somebody else is cheating Ken in the pointless insult category. I mean, how big a fucking hypocrite can you be? Anyway, in such a manner, making you your explains seem intellectual. So, so he's calling it somehow I personally insulted him, and yet it seems intellectual. Gee, that sounds a little bit also idiotic. That's like oxymoronic, actually. You really are really dumb, aren't you? I mean, you're dumber than I thought. I mean, I should have read this ahead of time and said, oh, this guy's so fucking stupid. There's no point. Not only this, but you profusely and intentionally exclude vast quantities of his works. So I'm supposed, so he has like 10,000 videos. I did read his book. It's more than you've probably done, right, asshole? You know, just more bullshit, right? I mean, it's video like 17. I actually play his videos. Why don't you show me where Ken actually does that for somebody else, where Ken Wheeler actually allows somebody to make their argument their way, and somebody alive, you know, which he also he only picks on dead people, and most dead people don't have videos anyway. Works to better fit your personal and vindictive motives. So, so again, it's just such an idiotic claim to make to somebody who actually plays other people's videos without editing them. Okay, without quote mining. I play the video from point A to point D or something without interrupting the video. I play every little bit in the video. I don't extract pieces out. I don't cheat the argument. And yet you make this kind of accusation. I mean, it's just so ironic. Where does Ken Wheeler display any of this integrity? When he says something about what physics says, where does he actually show them saying it? Oh, that's right, he doesn't. Do you and you think like Ken Wheeler makes fun of Richard Feynman's magnetism video, you know, because Feynman spends 5 minutes not answering the question. But do you think you could make a 5-minute Ken Wheeler video on magnetism that wouldn't sound absolutely insane? That I could play it right next to Feynman's video and people would generally say, okay, Feynman didn't explain it either, but at least I understood what the fuck he was saying. You really think it would happen any other way? Yes, I think you're an idiot. He does explain the dielectric field. Where? There is no dielectric in the first place. So dielectric is a form of matter. Dielectric isn't a field. Anyway, although not in this video. Well, there. So I guess I didn't have to. I don't know what you're complaining about. But again, go ahead, put it together. Go ahead, find one of Ken's defenders to come into this room and explain what a dielectric field is and how one would measure such a field. There is nothing educational found in your videos. That's just your statement. Obviously, you're panicking enough to write all this tripe, this trivial non-response seems kind of a panicked reaction. If Ken Wheeler is incorrect, quite obviously, correct has to sound like something other than an incomprehensible language. Then the driving force behind your obsessive. So again, more words like I'm obsessed when it's a tiny percentage of my videos are reference Ken Wheeler. It's just a fact. So again, you call it an obsession, yet there's no evidence of obsession. So that's sort of like Ken Wheeler's videos. He talks a lot of hyperboloid and troyoid and all this shit. Yeah, he doesn't produce any evidence that any such thing exists. And through deconstruction of his videos must be an outlet of pleasure for you. So now you're just impugning psychological motives. And I could say that Ken Wheeler's, problem with the word magnitude, lack of magnitude has to do with the fact that he has a very inverted penis. And so that's why that word is just sticks in his craw. And he had to invent an idiotic concept like unmagnitude, because he had to have some way to describe the greatness of the inverted penis, without saying it's inverted. Oh, fuck. He's had to somehow give it magnitude by giving it the unmagnitude. By putting magnitude in the phrase, even though he und it, somehow. the unmagnitude, like the loss of inertia. Yeah. Yeah. His penis also has a lack of inertia. You know, that is, it doesn't change. It just stays inverted. And so he had to come up with a way to say erectile dysfunction. And so instead of saying erectile dysfunction, he says a lack of inertia. In correcting others and stepping on them to make you feel better. So again, taller. Well, I already am tall enough, frankly. I don't really need to feel any taller, frankly. 6'1" is about right. Yeah, a little taller, too tall. Fall over too easy. If Ken Wheeler is correct, which is 0 chance that that's possible, then cognitive dissonance must be the driving force behind this infatuation. So again, more concepts like if somebody like Richard Dawkins should not argue in defense of atheism as a scientist. You know, he shouldn't waste his time trying to prevent people from falling for the you know, the carnival barkers of bullshit. Just more bullshit. This isn't an infatuation. I'd rather Ken Wheelers didn't exist. I'd rather there wasn't anybody doing really bad dissident science, because what needs to be attacked is the bad model of conventional physics. It deserves to be attacked. And instead of it being attacked by people with some sort of credible standards and some sort of people who care about things like evidence, it's being attacked by a bunch of fakes and phonies who don't think they have to have evidence. They just have to say shit like pi equals psi over pi di phi. And there, that's the special magnitude or whatever, the, you know, their little spiritual mumbo jumbo. One thing I have noticed, though, Ken Wheeler has no interest in a combative dialogue between you two. He seems to have no interest in a combative dialogue and a dialogue with anyone who disagrees with him who happens to be alive. He's a coward, a big fat coward. Okay, that's the word for it. Okay, not an uncoward, not an unhero. Yes, he's sort of an unhero. Okay, he's unheroic. He could, you know, he lacks heroitude. He could care less about what you think about what he thinks. He cares less because he has a sycophant audience like you who's paying him very well to talk absolute shit. And that's the sad truth. You little fuckers are the problem. And that's why I'm arguing with the problem. And all you seem capable of concerning yourself over other. Well, and that makes a lot of sense. And all you seem capable of is concerning yourself over other. Right. The 97% of my videos are explaining my theory. And you seem I'm obsessed with other. So again, wrong answer. Your evidence will suck to defend that argument. Would you wish to defend it in some way, like, you know, statistics? You understand what facts are? Do you have any facts or evidence to defend your idiotic statement? Because it's on its face idiotic. Ken Wheeler's name is only in 20 videos out of 1,000. Moron. Okay. So now we need to add another comment. If Ken Wheeler's ideology, and that's what it is, it's not science or physics, it's not a theory that's explained, it's just jargon. Ideology is as fictional and irrational as you say it is. We can akin it to Bigfoot. Well, you could. I would akin it to religion. How many TV shows out there are trying to debunk the Finding Bigfoot TV shows? Well, clearly there's lots of people, scientists, who would mock such programs and who might even make a commentary about how that kind of crap just means TV is a vast wasteland. That's kind of why it was described as a vast wasteland, because of waste. Yeah, like that. It's wasted on nonsense, feeding dumbasses just cotton candy, silly rubbish. You sound like a madman, so you have to be a madman to be disturbed by waste and rubbish. Hunting Bigfoot hunters. So how am I hunting them? I don't have to hunt them. They're right there on the YouTube. And I just play their video and point out how, listen to that pile of shit. Listen to that pile of shit. No evidence for any of that shit. What the fuck does that mean? That's all I have to say. It's a pretty good bullet saying, what the fuck does that mean? And you get no answer. To prove Bigfoot doesn't exist. Well, obviously I can't prove Bigfoot doesn't exist, but I can prove that there's a connection between the concept of proof and the provision of evidence. That if you're going to make a claim like Ken does, that he bent light in one of his silly experiments, he says, proven, bent light bended by magnetism, proven. That's how he titles the video, asshole. Do you think he proved it? Do you really? Honestly, if somebody actually forced you to be honest and said something like on the life of your somebody you might care about, your pet frog, something you might care about, would you swear that inside your heart you really think Ken Wheeler proved it? Do you really think so? I don't think you think so. And you're just a dishonorable turd to sit here and say that, yeah, Ken shouldn't do that. Ken shouldn't claim he's proven something when he hasn't proven it. That's kind of bullshit. That's called clickbait and shit. And he does that shit all the time. And you think that character defect is okay because Ken is fat and stupid looking like you. Is that it? You're the one with the personal motive, it seems to me. All right. If you think he is a fool, no, I think you're the fool. You just get it wrong. He's an idiot and a stinking lousy lying cunt. You're the fool because you fall for that shit. Lack of magnitude, loss of inertia, hyperboloid, troyoid, counter space. You fall for that fucking crap. Counter space. Then you such spend, well, here comes another great sentence, right? Then you such spend an inordinate amount of time. So again, a completely indefensible statement. No inordinate time has been spent. Tiny fraction of time spent. Completely ordinate to Ken's popularity. Okay? That's created by idiots like you. Foolish, wasted on fool. So again, anybody who argues religion is wasting their time. They're not trying to prevent somebody from being an idiot like you. And they're not doing something useful or good, in your opinion. I think they are. And who is the biggest one of them all? Well, again, you're the biggest fools because you fall for absolute shit and think that's an answer. You think Ken has the secrets to magnetism, that he's unlocked the mysteries of magnetism. Do you really think he has? Could you explain how magnets attract and repel in 5 minutes? Could you do it, please? In a way that doesn't sound worse than Richard Feynman's explanation? The arguing fool or the fool arguing with a fool. So again, I'm not saying Ken Wheeler's the fool. You're the fools. You're the little stupid dupes. Ken Wheeler's making money off you suckers. Okay, talking just rubbish and shit. I'm done here. Oh, we are so brave. Yeah, no arguments. Okay, so you didn't point out how, well, you didn't link me to any of this great evidence for any of the claims Ken has made. You didn't point out how my theory's wrong. So, fail. Okay. So now we have erroneous font. P-H-A-N-T, whatever. All right, so this is an EU defender. even less articulate, less words anyway. This guy doesn't seem to know anything about the theory at all. Well, who does? Frankly, I mean, I've played their videos. They don't seem to have a whole big theory. All they just seem to have is, look, craters look a little bit like the discharge from a spark on the metal. It's circular with a little thing in the middle. See? So electricity, right? Craters, electricity. Looks the same, sort of. That's their theory, right? There's just no theory. There's nothing to it. Anyway, about the theory at all, and it's just rambling about some religious comparison. Well, frankly, I play the guy's own words and respond to his own words. I didn't make them religious. He did, okay? He's the one talking in religious terms, not me, him. Wow, I mean, these people are just amazing. Which the EU has nothing to do with. Well, to say the EU has nothing to do with this Thornhill character, I would argue is ridiculous on its face, because it's like their God. So, what? You don't want to take responsibility for his statements, then fine. I'm just saying that they are what they are. He thinks, electricity is a kind of spirit. That the underlying universe will somehow make so much more sense when we acknowledge that it's electrical. So again, the electric universe is just a pile of mush, and now they're just doing a plasma thing. And there's nothing magical about plasmas. They're just a plasma is basically you just create enough electric charge, and the electrons want to move, and they can't move, okay, without a conductor. So they basically burn some of the conductor off the cathode, and it just goes with the anode, and it just creates its own conductor in the atmosphere. That's all a plasma is just a bunch of hot atoms. Nothing magical. Certainly doesn't explain anything the planets and the sun and the solar system are doing. I mean, all underneath this too is some sort of like the universe is only 1,000 years old. I mean, that sounds like creationism. Is there any other reason to try to make the universe 1,000 years old, or the solar system? Any good reason to try to do that? No, there's no good reason. There's no evidence pointing to that, and all the evidence points to something quite opposite. A very old universe. All right, so enough of that piss comments. Anyway, so as demonstrated, comments aren't worth much. It's not worth investing much energy in them. All right, there was something though. Yeah, okay, speaking of Ken Wheeler and the ferrocell, so I did some looking around at the old Scientific Lee guy's videos. He has some videos on the ferrocell, and one of them was quite interesting. So I'll see if I can find that. Fuck. Yeah, I thought it was here. I think this is it. Yes, looks like it is. All right, so this was really quite interesting. Maybe I make it bigger. Let's see if the video plays eventually. Come on, get to it already. Wasn't much of a mechanical failure here. Someone play. What the hell's going on? Oh, that's right, I slowed it down. So I'll advance the video to in here. So he has these are just LEDs on a ringed thing. And you can see, so this is under a square ferrocell. And it's like 3 millimeters, 3 mils thick glass, something like that. So it's pretty thick. So, but this kind of demonstrates, this is all really just about this stupid, this is just an optical illusion. There's there's so little that's really happening here. So you can see this pattern doesn't change at all as this object moves. And so it really, you know, it has to be something that's happening just from light diffraction, and all the little ferrous material is lined up the same way. No matter where you move the thing, it's all the same arrangement, and it creates this kind of diffraction, you know, like the two slit experiment. These are little tiny bits of material, and obviously the light is diverging and spreading and doing all kinds of screwed up shit when it goes through the medium that has the ferrofluid in it. And yeah, but dissecting all of this is, I mean, it looks quite bizarre. You know, I mean, it's an impressive thing when you look at it. But it's, you know, very little of it is being created by the magnet. What the magnet's creating is the opportunity for essentially a diffraction gradient. So you can think of it in those terms. All right. I mean, you know, I have one on the porch that I'm going to play with. You know, it's made out of cloth, you know, and when you shine a laser through it, you know, it does the pattern all over the place kind of thing. And so it's the same kind of effect. These are little tiny particles very close together, very high resolution, so to speak, in terms of, you know, all the potential for a pattern. So it's like a diffraction gradient where you shine the light through and it's, you know, spreads in specific ways. Now, it's obviously not spreading in some sort of like a diffraction gradient in the sense that you're not getting little dots in specific geometric locations. You're getting this, you know, these bent lines. So there's some, you have to explain, you know, why the lines are bent. And you have to go through this like almost frame by frame to do that. You know, to go through all the subtlety that's in, you know, this object. You know, I mean, you can figure out, okay, well, when it's close to the magnet, the lines are further apart. When it's further away, the lines are this. And you have to really figure out all that stuff to be able to glean any, you know, real information out of this. So one of his little light things broke, but I don't think having two wasn't all that productive. Just confuses things. So there's two on top of each other. So he spreads them out. You can just see that lots of pattern here, but it's all focused on the lights. I mean, the lights are the thing, and the pattern moves with the lights, not moving with the magnet. It's moving with the lights. So obviously the pattern is the same here, 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 you know, and everywhere. In some, it has something in common, or you wouldn't get exactly the same kind of pattern as you move this around. So watch as it moves. You'll see that this pattern doesn't change dramatically. Well, it's got them overlapped again. So, but it's just the light's doing it. And it's quite an effect, and internal reflections in the glass. But yes, it's an insane, you know, it's impressive, but there's a reason it's happening, and nobody's getting to the cause. They're just sitting here making up stories about the effect. But again, you can just sort of get the idea as how could this, just a circle with LEDs on it, be creating a vortex? There's no magnetic vortex where that ring is, you know. So it's, you know, it's clear there's something else going on. All right, so we'll get to that eventually. I mean, it's unfortunate there's no, if anybody can find it, I haven't been able to find yet anyone anywhere who dissects the optics of this ferrocell. No one. It just doesn't exist. And that's hugely unfortunate because this is just giving people all kinds of opportunity to make up crap about what a magnet's doing. And that's tragic. So anyway, just thought I'd show that because this is the really good example because it gives you, it just emphasizes what needs to be explained here. And how the light has so much to do with what you're seeing. It's all about the light, mostly. Obviously, the magnet's doing something in the sense it's lining up the little bits. I'm just saying. But clearly, the lights are what's deciding these images. Okay. So, nothing in the chat. No surprise, I suppose. Let's see how many people are in here just out of curiosity. 13. Should be enough for somebody to have said something. But the way it is, nothing will have to do and such. All right. So I made a short list of sorts just to go through conventional physics and all the stuff it's missing. So as I keep pointing out, the biggest one that nobody ever talks about is they don't have energy. So they don't have energy for gravity. That is no explanation of what is actually causing the atomic little bits in things to move. In every other case, they have to be moved because you move a magnet in or you have to do something to change the environment around them. Usually you have to do something physical, like hit them. So if I put a pen here, you would expect that I can't just say the pen moved from here to here. And if I said it did that, you'd ask me, well, you should be able to prove that happened because you can show that there was energy involved. Where did the energy come from? You're going to expect me to have some explanation for where the energy came from, what hit it, what pulled it or pushed it, or what affected it, what interacted with it. I'm not going to really just say bent space. You're going to say, what do you mean bent space was bent? That's bullshit. I made bent space. You're going to say, no, you didn't. That didn't happen. So they have nothing. And then in the case of magnetism, it's even more obvious because you have this very dramatic effect. I lost my little magnet. I don't know where he went. Might be stuck on this battery. Remember, I was playing with it with the battery, but nope, it's not on that battery. Nope. I lost it. I don't like losing my little magnet. Anyway. Once you think about stuff like that, you're just like, where is that magnet? It must be here somewhere. Stuck to something. All right, sorry about the noise. Didn't realize that would knock like that. All right, but anyway, magnets. There's just no explanation provided by conventional physics. They say virtual photon, but they don't even, you can sort of understand that. Well, what does that mean? I sort of understand a photon. I understand light. Okay, light could create pressure. If I shoot light out of something, I could theoretically move things apart, theoretically. If you put a laser beam on a little Maxbox car or something, and you put another one facing the other way and you shot the beams at the cars, you could have an expectation that eventually the cars might move apart from the pressure created by the photons. But how would that explain attraction? How can a virtual photon inspire attraction? So they don't provide any explanation for any of that. None whatsoever, zero. So the two really the most interesting things that are happening in the universe, gravity and magnetism, and they actually have no explanation for how it happens. No explanation for where the energy comes from. So something physically happens, physical events, things move, and they don't have to provide you any explanation for how they moved, why they moved, what caused them to move. And you're okay with that. You're saying, great theory. Thanks for explaining it. Now, that's a shitty theory. All right, now the other side to the fact that they don't have an explanation for these two things is the fact that the two things are founded on principles that are completely different. Bent space versus virtual photon. And that you're not going to be able to make these things compatible. You're not going to make bent space into a quantizable Planck constant kind of force that all of quantum mechanics basically is devoted to perceiving all motion as being the product of. Some kind of something has to happen for something else to happen for something else to happen. It's definitely a cause and effect theory where bent space, yeah, we don't need much of this cause stuff. But I mean, it's just not in the same form at all. They're not consistent mechanical explanations. So they're never going to be, they're just not compatible. They're not going to be able to mold this into anything called a simpler. They're not ever going to be able to get to a simpler diagram of reality because they've already gone different branches. So there can't be a common evolutionary branch because the two branches are on opposite sides of the tree. Whatever, however you want to look at it. They can't get smaller from where they've tied the branch. The two branches are on two different trees, that kind of thing. All right. So the two slit experiments. Now, this is the foundation for most of the quantum mechanics, the whole wave theory, all of that stuff. Huge flaw is the single slit in light isn't anything like water waves. It's also true that the double slit technically isn't anything like water waves, and that water waves don't create the superimposed double pattern. So it's not even explicitly or it's not fundamentally similar. It's only superficially similar. And obviously the wave in the water is doing this. It's not doing photon, no photon. It's doing wave that agitates full positive, full negative, which isn't even the same function. And clearly it's created by mechanisms, mechanical mechanisms that probably can't have anything to do with each other, where the round wave in water is being created by friction and the adhesion of the water molecules. There's no parallel for that in quantum physics. So a really bad foundation for an entire Sasquatch kind of story. They started by saying we have a 6-foot tall egg, and then they have a human hatch out of the egg. So it's just can't be the right answer. All right, then we have the interferometer, which I've pointed out. Another fundamental bit of their physics in terms of saying there's no ether, even though they believe in fields that have to be made out of something. They claim there's no ether because of this interferometer experiment. And then they claim all kinds of other things with this experiment in terms of gravity waves and other nonsense. And it seems that nobody does any dissection of exactly how this thing is supposed to work. And nobody examines their claims where they say things like, we create two equal beams, when that's a tricky thing to do, creating two equal beams, because they mechanically have to have something different happen to them. So they can't exactly be equal. Just intuitively, you can figure that out. Can't be the same. Hitting the mirror and not hitting the mirror can't possibly be likely to produce the same beam. But anyway, it's some sort of change. It's going to impose a different path will lead to a different destination. kind of thing. It's just sort of obvious. Well, anyway, so now I've gone through some of these points with the interferometer and pointed out how optics creates this pattern, how there is no theory of how this wave function could take both paths and then recombine, that their theory doesn't even make sense when you really think about it, and that the whole experiment is dubious as even a thought experiment. It's dubious as even a thought experiment. It's dubious that it could work, let alone as a physical reality. All right. Gravity lens. So the lensing argument. I've pointed out how the lens is the wrong shape. It's bending light on the outside less and more on the inside. You can't create an Einstein ring that has any thickness with the wrong shaped lens. That is, the light has to come from the center. It has to spread out. It has to be reflected more on the outside than on the inside to create a ring. There's no other way it can happen. It's theoretically, again, broken in concept. It can't happen. And yet they claim it's happened. They claim they took pictures of it. Yet it theoretically can't happen the way they say it. They claim it happens. It can't happen that way. And then you have all this evidence of all the stuff where we have lots of gravity and we have no lensing. And they just ignore the facts. So when the evidence fits, they take pictures of it. When the evidence doesn't fit, they just pretend it never had. That never existed. I don't have to see it. I don't have to. Let's not look at that. And it's a clear bias. They're quote mining the evidence, and that's all they're doing. And it's obvious they're doing that. And everybody just says that's okay. Go ahead, quote mine the evidence. What else did I say here? Let's see, not where it's supposed to be. Then the R squared exception. Well, this sort of goes to the theory of relativity, but it's important for this argument of gravitational lensing, where Einstein created this new rule that everything else in the universe, electrons, protons, neutrinos, magnetism, the nuclear force, all the other forces, everything else in the universe, gravity affects it by the R squared rule. But photons, no, just the R rule. We just rub that squared part out. And this way we can take an impossible, something that's theoretically impossible, and make it theoretically possible by saying that we're just going to say the inverse square law doesn't exist for photons. So gravity somehow makes more gravity when there's a photon in the universe. So if an electron goes by, there's only enough gravity for the inverse square law. But if it's a photon that goes by, somehow the object making the gravity, bending the space, knows that no, you can twice as much bending. Twice as much. No reason for it except to facilitate a bunch of bad theory. Except to, in some bizarre way, make it possible to do something for which there's no evidence you can do. And, by the way, which in the context now, 100 years after Maxwell and all that stuff, seems even more out of place. I mean, the glaringness of this special exception for photons gets more and more glaring when you have all these other particles now, particle soup, and the same rules don't apply to the particle soup. Doesn't make much sense. Seems a glaringly, probably wrong thing to have done. A mistake, but nobody's worried about fixing it, except me. All right. Let's see. Not magnetism. Yeah. So does magnetism get the free ride? Does it get to escape the inverse square law? It moves the same speed as a photon. Why shouldn't it have the same exception? But it doesn't. It's just really bad science. Really bad. All right. So then the gravity waves is a sort of a branch of that. So the most glaring thing, as I've pointed out, is the conversion of matter into bent space. So they didn't say that there were 3 solar masses, which is a huge amount of energy, the lifetime of a sun plus the mass of the sun. So it's not only just the burning life of the sun, but it's taking all the matter in the sun and nuclearizing it. That is, converting it into just energy, which I don't even know how to explain how much energy that is. But anyway, 3 solar masses worth of energy, which is just an unimaginably preposterous amount of energy. All the mass turned into energy. But they don't call it energy. They call it bent space, a gravity wave. And yet it doesn't disturb anything around it somehow. But they won't admit that it's real energy, because then if they admitted it was real photons, then they'd have to explain why it doesn't burn everything to a cinder all around it when this conversion takes place, when these 3 solar masses are converted into energy. So they don't have to explain why it wouldn't be so bright that it would blind us all. You know, they have to come up with some reason why we're not all blind. And the reason why we're not all blind is because it's not energy, it's bent space, that kind of bullshit. All right. But so just really, on its face, something Einstein didn't believe in. They keep putting Einstein's name on it, like Einstein approved all of this crap, when Einstein basically didn't approve any of this crap. He did dispute most of it, and even the parts that he conceded to. Again, they're just not being accurate to those concessions, and they're making it sound like Einstein thought it was really possible to convert matter into energy. I mean, into bent space. He did think you could convert into energy. He didn't think you could convert into bent space. Mass makes bent space bend. Mass does. Compressing stuff, keeping it together, creates gravity. You don't create gravity by blowing stuff up. It's the opposite of making gravity by Einstein's theory. All right. Then you have relativity. Okay. And my biggest objection in terms of the manipulations of this speed and perception argument is the idea that they've destroyed all notions of perpendicular. So anything that's moving can't release anything that actually moves perpendicular. It'll always move forward with its momentum. And that shouldn't be true of a photon. Photons don't do that. There's no reason to think photons carry 2 momentums, or that they're in some way obligated to be obedient to these rules, that something leaving perpendicular would be leaving perpendicular. It wouldn't always go forward. So they're basically saying if you're shooting a laser outside a school bus window, that theoretically the laser's pointing a little bit crooked. That even if you think you're shooting it perpendicular to the bus's motion, nah, you're not really doing that. And yeah, I think that is a very unproven and unrationally defended proposition. All right, so that's the short list anyway. And then you got the dark stuff. Okay, you got neutrinos, dark matter, dark energy. All stuff that doesn't make any sense. In my opinion, just no sense at all. How can neutrinos have mass? Mass is made out of protons, electrons, and neutrons. How can a neutrino have mass if it doesn't have an electron, a proton, or neutron in it? And if it's an electron neutrino, I mean, this is the kind of rhetoric they use. They're just making shit up. And again, why would a neutrino be invisible, and why would photons be visible? In the sense, why would photons easily interact with matter and neutrinos not easily interact with matter, when photons by definition seem to me have to be smaller than neutrinos? How can this make any sense? I don't think it can make any sense. Blah, 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 blah. So, all right, still nothing in the chat. Wow. A completely nothing chat. So it's discouraging. There's nothing else you can say about it. The critics are too big a coward to come into this room, and I don't know. Yeah, there's no point in talking to the allies, I suppose. But yeah, just you think somebody would have something, some sort of desire to debunk me or to in some way demonstrate that I don't know what I'm talking about. And yet there's no challengers show up. No defenders of the conventional mush. So you can't get Ken Wheeler to defend his mush. Can't get the Electric Universe to defend their silly shit. You can't. It's just really bad. That's the bad thing about that Scientific Lee guy. It's unfortunate because he's actually, he'd probably make a pretty good scientist. He does do a lot of experiments, puts a lot of energy into this stuff. But he's just fucking got that whatever God delusion. It's just completely fucked his brain. Just very sad. Yeah, it's just what a waste. So I guess that's it. So I'll give you a couple of minutes if somebody's got something to say, but I don't know. Chat should be on and disable it or anything. I guess I could test it. Let's see if it works. Say something. Okay. I'll type something. There, spacebar. There. I'll type a nothing comment, see if it posts. It did. Yay. At least I'm not blocked. Cool. Chat works. Yes, chat works. Yes, it does. I found that out on my own with a test. I did an experiment. Yes, good idea to do experiments. So I do have some more two-slit stuff, but I'll save it for when I have more two-slit stuff and when I can, there's still nothing decisive. I have to come up with some experiments that'll actually prove something, and that's hard to do. It's a very old and simple experiment. There's not much you can do, unless you have really precise instrumentality to make really tiny slits or something. But I'll keep working at it. I do have some ferrofluid, so I really should do some ferrofluid experiments. I have some pretty good microscopes, so I figure I should be able to try do the ferrofluid thing under a microscope and see if I can see some of what's going on. I don't know. It's all optics. I know, that's the tricky part is optical things get very, a lot to it, a lot to all this internal reflections and all this other stuff. It's you need somebody who really has some experience in understanding these optical phenomenon. Because you look at that image and you say, oh yeah, there's light coming out of those LEDs and it's shooting down these trails, and that's not what's happening. It's just not. There's rays of photons coming in all directions. In some directions it hits, it's absorbed by the ferrous material, and in some places it gets through, and that's really the difference. You're seeing light that gets through and it's diffracted. The stuff that goes through gets diffracted, and the stuff that doesn't go through, that hits one of the pieces of rust, is where the dark spots are. So, but they're not separated by that much distance. It's all an illusion. The actual little bits of ferrous material are quite densely packed. There's a million lines inside of those gaps. A million little lines of ferrous material. A million's probably an exaggeration, but you could say 100, or 1,000. So every place you see one of those lines in the gap, that really is just representing hundreds of little lines of ferrous material. See, the little ferrous bits are designed that they're longer than they are fat, and they connect head to tail. So they do a lot of this stuff, and they'll connect this way, half and half, and so they can get a little bit thick, but they don't like getting thick. They like getting long. So they tend to go long easier than they go wide. So lots of little subtleties. But they're very small, 10 nanometers across kind of stuff. Very small. I mean, that's like the wavelength of a X-rays or something. So 10 nanometers is small. I don't think they can be that small. That's what I heard them say. And you say 10 nanometers? Come on, they can't be that small. That's insanely small. It's a million times smaller than, I mean, that's like 100,000th of a millimeter. It's just hard to imagine something that small. Yeah, see, I got to get these number things right? I mean, a nanometer is 1 millionth of a millimeter, right? Or am I wrong? Yeah, it's too bad they didn't keep doing the metric system thing here, because it really would be good to know this stuff. Yeah, I think it's because I think you have a micrometer or something in between, and then nanometer. So it'd be 1,000 times 1,000, which would be a million. So yeah, it's got to be. So 10 would be 100,000th of a millimeter. Ten times 100,000 is 1 million. So I think that's correct. Anyway, there's nobody here who wants to do math, so they won't correct me either live anyway. So, unfortunately, there's just nothing here. This is just so futile. It's just so depressing. So little contribution. Well, that doesn't really help. 0, 0, 0. I have to count these zeros. So that's 1 millionth of a centimeter, you're saying. So a nanometer is 1 millionth of a centimeter, not 1 millionth of a millimeter. So there's 10 millimeters in a centimeter. So take off 2 zeros to get the millimeters. So how many millimeters? What is 1 nanometer equals how many millimeters? So it should only be 0.00000, right? So that's 100,000th of a millimeter. I mean, it all should be in millimeters, shouldn't it? I mean, isn't that really like, shouldn't millimeters be the standard, not centimeters? I mean, centimeters are awful big. I mean, millimeters should be the standard. I mean, we can all understand a millimeter. I mean, a millimeter is like, tip of this pen. Millimeters like a needle or something. It's a little less than a millimeter. Well, it's kind of a lot less actually. So needle's not a good example. Yeah, the tip of this pen is a good. The ball on the end of the pen or something. That's about a millimeter. So, a millionth of a centimeter would be 1,000 millimeters. Yeah, no, that can't be right. So now you're still at 100,000. of a millimeter. So I don't think you're right there, unless you looked it up on Google or something. Is that what Google says? Sort of a direct question, yes or no? Are you making this up, or did you get this from some trustworthy mathematical device? Oh, I should just do it myself, but it just seems wrong to sit in the room here and go to Google and look it up myself. All right, so yeah, so I was right. 100,000th of a millimeter is a nanometer. So I was right. Oh no, I said it was 1 millionth. So it's only 100,000th. So 10 of them would be 10,000th. So something that's 10 nanometers would be 1/10,000th of a millimeter. Okay. Yeah. Now we're down to 10,000. That's a much more, still 1/10,000th is a really small thing. And I just think those little ferro bits are bigger than that. So I just find it hard to believe 10 nanometers. Come on. That's too small. One millimeter equals, well, you already did it the other way around, so it's the same thing, isn't it? So it's 1, 0, 0. Now you have it back up to a million, you fucking cunt. Just look, you have 0.000001. That's 1/100,000th, right? Logically. And now, see, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 zeros. Now you have 6 zeros. You can't do that. I mean, you can't have 5 zeros and then have 6 zeros. I don't think you can do that. I don't think that's legal. So anyway, that's what I said originally. 1 millimeter equals 1 million nanometers. So that's what I said originally. But apparently, I don't know, something's wrong here somewhere. Just, this is why, it's hard to do anything. It's because you gotta, first you have to get this stupid number shit right. It sort of matters, it's not a little difference. No, it's only 1,000 times different. Yeah. So, anyway, I will find out, I guess. I mean, I should be able to figure out what my microscope is doing in terms of sizes. I have to get like a scale, I have to get like a microscope scale, some kind of slide you can put inside the microscope, and then you can read off, you know, nanometers. Yeah, I have to get me one of those. But anyway, but I have to, got to get some of this stuff. Got to get something grokkable I can just shove in your faces. Look, see, proof. It really is disappointing. I'm apparently the only person, the only cynic out here about this ferrocell who has any curiosity about how the fuck this thing's working. Yeah, not a single video dissecting it in any other than a spiritual or religious or metaphysical way. Like, oh, this is the, you know, all this toroids and hyperboloidy bullshit. You know, that somehow magnets can't do any of this shape shifting, you know, except with the magical LED lights. I'm fairly certain, I think too, if you shine a laser beam through this stupid ferrocell, you know, that you should be able to detect some of the arrangement of the ferro material, because the beam will slowly degrade as it passes through the ferrous material. You'll get little bright spots, and it should be a better indicator of where the little ferro bits are lined up. So I have to try to do that. Really have to do that. I have to try to do that tomorrow. Pull out the ferro material shit. But I really want to do it all on slides. I want to do it on small stuff so I can stick it under the microscope. I want to be able to see what's going on. So, no other conversation. Just disappointing, but not much to say. We have some bad conversions, and that's it. Yeah, that's it. Ah, Mike comes to the rescue. Are the, I guess he's saying they, really, no, maybe he's not saying that. Uh, no capitals here, which is bad too. Are the really any great scientists anymore? Oh, are there? Um, yeah, that's tough. You know, there's people who are doing stuff in labs and they're really passionate about it and they have a theory and they, you know, you sort of say, okay, that's kind of admirable. But I guess it's because the science is so complicated now, right? I mean, anything you do, um, you know, there's so much going on. It's like even this laser beam is kind of unreliable, right? I mean, it's kind of cool. You can see it. That's kind of cool. Yeah, I can make you see it better. But look at all that, the smoke. You can see the smoke. Oh, that's fairly cool with a slow frame rate. Oh, I like that. I have to see if I can capture that on a camera. Yeah, get some slow motion film of that. Ooh, cool. Anyway, sorry, got distracted. Um, so even this laser, I should not shine at my eyes. You know, it goes through a little crappy lens, and you know, it's getting you know it's being distorted in the form, and it's distorted. It has real distortions in it. So here you can do an experiment, you know, as a scientist, say this is a laser beam, but it's really not what you think it is because it's made of components of light. You know, the light coming out the very center is different than the light a little further out and a little further out. It's all very different light. So it gets a little complicated. But that's probably the problem with science. I'm just saying, especially physics. Most of physics is now, if you're going to do anything that's like fun or you know, the kind of physics going to get published, it always has to be the physics that's all this very high end, big pressure things, plasmas, all this fancy fun stuff. And the theory for that stuff is all mush. I mean, there's a lot of mush in the theory. So you can't really do good science because it's founded on bad science. It's founded on the fact that all these physicists think photons are waves. They really think they're waves. I mean, you can't get it right if you don't really understand. There's a huge difference between you thinking the stuff coming out of this laser, all right, is some sort of coaxial cable, of some sort of waves in little kind of straight line waves or something. And you thinking, oh yeah, it's a bunch of little tiny bits of force. And that these just happen to be little bits of force that we can see, that our eyes are sensitive to, so we can sense these little bits, but they're a tiny percentage of the energy that's around me right now. But these just happen to be the visible ones. Like there's a lot of other microwaves, all kinds of other photons flying in this atmosphere right here. And they add up to a lot more energy, the heat, even the infrared. A lot more of that than there is this little tiny bit of green shit. Yet the green shit wow, look at all that. Look how bright that green shit is, right? But it's really not. It's only because we're sensitive to it. We can detect it, and that's it. So we have this whole delusion about what's going on. But yeah, this is a photon cannon. This shoots little photons. It doesn't shoot waves. Or at least it kind of seems like the industry sucks right now. It shouldn't really be called an industry, frankly. Scientists shouldn't be the industry of science. It really shouldn't be an industry. So I was thinking about Amanda today. I checked your little camera thingy. Saw you look kind of depressed. You're kind of but that's how I've been for like 4 months. I'm really not depressed. I'm something else. So I can't even call it depressed. I'm just totally I'm just totally sick of everything. Yeah, that's it. I'm totally just sick of everything. I'm not depressed, but everything makes me sick. Wow, that's awesome. It's almost looks like Damascus pattern in light. I don't know what that is. Damascus. I don't know what that is. A Damascus pattern in light. It's some sort of swirly bit, I imagine. A swirly bit pattern. Yes, it's the swirly bit pattern. But yes, the advantage of a very slow frame rate just has some value, as I've just learned. I don't think I could see that here. Let me see if I can see it here. I wasn't even looking. I was looking at the, gotta turn the key on. Ugh. Oh, you can see it a little bit. Yeah, so you can see it a little. Yeah, you see it at higher resolution, but it doesn't do the width thing. You don't see it as thick. So you just see it in a little line. But it's cool. I just have to try some photographic experimentes. I should be able to pick that up with a time exposure. One would think. Yeah. So many things to do. And I'm thinking of playing with the laser. All this serious work to do. No, play with the laser instead. Anyway. But so you people really just aren't helping at all. You're supposed to say something physicky. And it didn't even give me very good Google conversions. It gave me conflicting numbers. And yeah, so all this dumping it, just keep dumping it all on me. Maybe I have to do everything. Eesh. just so tired. It's tired. I want a vacation or something. I want to just take a year off. But I might die. I'll be like, oh shit, I just wasted the last 6 months. I could have proven my theory, and instead I died. Yeah, I get the idea of it anyway, so I don't think I have to look it up. It's like plastic. You bend a piece of plastic and the light gets all funky. I get it. The oil droppy thing. It's more of these optical illusion-y kind of stuff things. But obviously the laser beam's not doing it in any kind of, it's doing it based on pretty clear, just scatter. So you're getting a pretty undistorted view of the smoke particles and their density. And the fact that they are, they're very ionizable, and they tend to, they do that magnetic thing, so they attract and repel, depending on distance. Alrighty, well, I guess I'll go. And because, if I'm going to just sit and stare into space, I might as well do that on my time. And such, and so forth and whatnot. So, yeah, that'll be it. Till the next time. Let me see how many people are here just for curiosity. 14, yeah, pretty poor. Thursday nights are always kind of poor for whatever reason, so far anyway. But obviously it's more than just Thursday night. There's no point blaming Thursday nights because there's a bigger problem here. Somehow there's just so few people. So few people can have a conversation about physics because it is kind of complicated. And it's all this specialty knowledge. I mean, it took me a while to get up to speed on all the specialty knowledge you have to have, of all the specialty experiments and all the specialty bullshit. And so that's part of the problem. There's just not enough people literate. And I don't seem to provoke any will in these other people to constructively interfere or even destructively interfere. They just don't want to do any of this interference thing. They just don't want to defend their crap, and they don't seem to have the courage to attack mine in any kind of rational way. And it's just all very discouraging. I'll have to see if Miles Mathis has published anything recently. I don't know if I have a link to him on here somewhere. See, maybe this will work. Don't know. Gotta make this video smaller. See if that popped on here. Doesn't appear to have worked. What is that? A4. That's not anything. That's not one of my things. I gotta be careful when I click on. There's all kinds of stuff that will shock and amaze people. Anyway, maybe I have a link here somewhere. Let's see, his site is called something like Updates or something, right? Yeah, something like that. Let's see, Verizon bill. I don't want that. Ooh, I gotta pay that, don't I? Yes, I do. Comments, stupid retarded Piro. That's not useful. It's not it there. Oh, I guess I don't have it here. Well, if I don't have the link, I won't go to the link. Yeah, that's how I play. I guess I could find it easy enough, but I do have my habits and do not wish to. Yeah, this is the one that should work. Yeah, that one worked. My eBay toolbar. And so I should have Miles Mathis on here towards the end somewhere. Should be on here. Should be. Should be. Should be. Updates. See, there it is. See? There's method to my madness. All right. Nope. Something for my critics. So no updates since the end of whatever that is, July or something. June. Something. So whatever. Yeah, he's just been arguing about Jew bigotry and shit. Wasted time. These idiots who give a fuck about who they're related to. I just don't know how people waste time on that kind of shit. Yeah. I mean, it's sort of, yeah, it's a real thing, I mean, having a heritage and all that crap and, blue eyes and whatever, having features. I can sort of understand having some connection to that, but I just couldn't care less about what my ancestors were doing 500 years ago. I'm sure they were assholes by my standards. Anyway, till the next time and such, I guess there's nothing here. There's nothing, nothing. There's nothing. I can't force anything, so I'll just get the hell out of here. So till it be the next time and such, hopefully you'll be more interactive. And maybe, possibly. And thanks, old fan and such. I have to make a video. Yeah, I have to do so many things. Avoid them all. Anyway, till next time.